Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kenny Lamons here with Medicare Millennials, and I don't remember the exact time frame, but nearly 4 years ago, I had my friend Nick Frunkin on this channel when I was just starting it out, green to the Medicare Advantage space, and he is a friend in the business, but also he's a longtime life insurance producer who transitioned into also selling Medicare and has been very successful in growing that part of his business over the years. So, what I love about this conversation today is he's a more veteran agent than I am. And he came into the business from life insurance, kind of, I wouldn't say transitioning because you're still a life agent, but
Yeah.
adding in that Medicare. And we'll kind of talk about how big of a part of your business that is. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've got Nick Frumkin here, and we are going to talk all things Medicare today. What's changing? What's working? What's not working? What do we like about the industry right now? What not so much? And what we think the future is going to look like. So, welcome, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back on your show. I can't believe it's been that long. It doesn't feel like 4 years ago. Although it must have been 2020, I think.
Yep, that's right.
Like it was
Right in the middle of COVID, I think.
yeah, it was right in the middle of COVID and everything. And that was 4 years ago now because time just keeps moving forward and
That
that's
was a
unfair.
weird time, wasn't it?
It really was.
For insurance, like
Oh my gosh.
specifically.
Yeah, it really was. Boy, and go back and watch some of the content that I made at that time. It's like I think the YouTube channel that I was working on at the time, which is uh, I don't want to say it's dead because it's not dead, but we I was doing the insurance panel with Matthew Murray.
Y'all did a
Um,
recent episode.
yeah, we did. Yeah, we still put them out when we have time. It's just we have so much less time than we used to have, and us having free time at the same time is like it's a minor miracle. Um, but you go back and you look at some of the stuff that we were doing, and we were doing like, lockdown videos and like how to sell insurance when you can't step outside and like all sorts of crazy stuff. So it is a different world and in some ways kind of back to normal, but yeah, it's
But simultaneously, it changed things forever. For
oh
instance, if you wanted to sell a Medicare Advantage plan before COVID over the phone, you had to have a special status called call center
yeah,
status.
you had to be a call center. You had to be registered. You had to you Most people had to fill out applications with paper and pencil. Um, Sunfire and Connecture and the one-stop shop like enrollment platforms were brand new.
Yep.
Like,
And
and not everybody had
practically
access to them.
useless at first.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And like not everybody even had access to them. Like it was the exception rather than the rule that somebody would have access to stuff like that. And like I was just talking to one of the agents that I work with couple hours ago, and she was saying, I've finally decided I'm going to stop getting enrollment kits from the carriers and carrying them around with me in the back of my car. I was like, oh my God, what? I haven't, like, why are you still doing that? It's 2024. You don't need to carry enrollment kits around in the back of your car anymore. And she's like, I know, but I've been doing it for years and it just doesn't feel like Medicare season unless I've got a trunk full of enrollment kits.
And it's hard to break. Successful insurance agents don't like, they're like baseball players. If you're on a
Yeah.
win streak, don't change
Don't.
anything,
Yep.
right? Like
100%.
don't mess it up. I never was real big on enrollment kits because when I finally started doing Medicare Advantage, it was beginning to get away from that where you could
Yeah.
email it. But when I started selling final expense, I wanted the brochure with me every sale. I remember back when Transamerica was popular. Like when
Yeah.
I first got in final expense, they were my number one for like 2 years.
Yeah. Sure.
I loved their brochure. And I would write on the back of it like
Hmm.
exactly what we were doing and leave it with them. And when that stuff went away, I felt naked when I left a house.
Oh
Like
my
I'm not
gosh.
doing something right. How am I supposed to present this to you? You're literally giving them nothing tangible now.
You're selling air. Yeah, it's crazy. They don't get a card. They don't get anything. There's life insurance companies that don't even send a policy unless the person asks for it, which is
Really?
wild to me. Like they're like, we'll email a policy, but if they want a policy, like I guess we'll send, if you call and ask, we'll send you one. Like that's crazy. Like who doesn't want a copy of their policy? But I guess enough people don't care that.
Our entire lives exist on some hard drive somewhere. And if
Yeah.
that goes out, like none of it's real.
Well, right. And so we're recording this on the day that like Microsoft server software got attacked by like this big DDoS attack, and like it shut down just a whole bunch of everything. And it is a little bit like, well, this is maybe what Y2K could have been like. It's not that bad, but ATMs aren't always working and not all airplanes can fly. It's very strange.
Funny story about that. I'm going to get my car registration done. You have to get your car registered every or inspected every year,
Yeah.
at least here in Texas. And I go in to do that. The dude's like, "Well, show me your insurance card." So I go to pull up my app, and I'm like, it offloaded the app, so I'm re-downloading the app, trying to get my policy card, and it won't work. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I couldn't even get my car inspected. He said, "I have to see your ID card." Not this is an example of like I don't even have insurance. Like if there's
Right.
no internet, I don't have insurance.
Yeah. You're in trouble. It doesn't exist.
It
So
doesn't exist. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so I don't know how we got off talking about that, but yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
It's good to see you. Let's jump into some Medicare stuff for those that are stuck with us this first few minutes here. State of Medicare sales.
Yeah.
I have avoided making videos. I did talk about Part D changes because that's very practical. But, of all the things that have changed, I have avoided putting specific videos out there because it's not black and white. Like it's so gray. And I'm no expert. I'm a measly insurance agent. So I've been trying to let things pan out a little bit. But although a lot is still up in the air, I think we're beginning to see at least what AEP will look like, which sounds business as usual, at least
Yeah.
for a few months. So I just want to touch on the state of the Medicare industry in general. And what I think is an interesting place to start is what I just talked about with the lead no compensation changes. Okay.
Okay.
So
Sure.
here's why I think it's so interesting because agents panicked at first, then the $100 to initial and $50 renewal bonus thing came out. And some insurance agent says, "Hey, this is a win for us. I don't need your Sunfire. I don't need your so on. I don't get leads for my upline. Looks like a win." FMOs fought back, and now all of that's on pause.
Yep.
Here's my reading of this situation. I'd love to hear your take.
Sure.
Now, where we stand right now, most carriers had already decided they're just going to put a pause on most things like marketing dollars, these like rewards where you could go get merch, co-op dollars, HRAs, even where we had been getting emails that they're stopping
Yep.
those. And then also they're not going to pay us this $100 and $50 now. So at
Yep.
the end of the day, where it stands right now, the agent loses.
Worst of all worlds.
Worst of all worlds.
Worst of all worlds. It's the worst possible outcome for
So
the
what are
agent.
your thoughts?
For the
Where do you
agent.
think we're
Yeah.
at?
I mean, so I think at end of the day, things will end up shaking out and things will ultimately end up being fair. I think where this hurts people is it hurts brand new agents who are struggling to get established, who don't have a renewal base and who don't have the consistent income coming in yet, or who maybe have a book of business, but mostly they kind of rewrite their book of business, and so they get still the big check in January, but then they're not really getting a lot of the renewals, and like, and I think it hurts people like that, and I think it hurts people um, who have been heavily reliant on these extras and perks to help get them on their feet. And I do think this is a really hard time for the new Medicare agent who is not financially stable. And this is I think a legitimately tough time for them. I think it will not be the worst thing in the world. I think the people who can tough it out, I think there are lots of positives. I think there's lots of good things, but I think that it is a legitimately difficult time for the new agent. For the more established agent, I sort of think it's great. I I sort of think it's actually really good news because long run, it's all going to work out. And short run, I feel like there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for people who are financially stable enough to be able to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you. The reality is, it requires financial stability to be able to do that. It requires you being able to make it through AEP without getting regular monthly paychecks from the new business that you're writing, or for you to have the ability to understand how to cross sell cancer plans, or cross sell hospital indemnity plans, or cross sell dental plans, or whatever, so that you have some cash flow coming in and being able to get leads and being able to figure out how to get in front of people. And I think for the agents who know already how to market, for the agents who know already how to get in front of all the people that they need to get in front of, for the agents um, that are in a good place, there is actually going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity as a result of all of these things that will ultimately work out for them. Still kind of a kick in the teeth. Like, yeah, I would have liked to have gotten marketing money. I'd have liked to have gotten HRA fees. Those would have been great. I would have liked to have gotten the extra $100 for the enrollments. I would have liked those to be retroactive, which is one of the things that they were talking about
Mhm.
on the renewals. Man,
Big
all of that
part.
would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I think most of that is still going to come eventually.
You think it'll pan out after all
I,
this, the dust settles?
I think once everything settles, I think most of that is still going to be available. It may not be available in the way that we are familiar with it. It might come in a different form. And I think that there is going to be a very weird and rocky 3 to 12 months.
So my biggest concern for new agents is the if they tightened up on all the extras, right? And
Mhm.
they tighten up on that, which is fine. That will help the established agent because right now, a lot of times it's gimmicky to get the marketing dollars,
Mhm.
right? Like it's like kind of they use it as a way to get you to switch FMOs or to sell this certain carrier and do all of this stuff. And I don't like playing those games. So a lot of times I just don't, if I don't get the money directly from the carrier, I won't take it
Right.
and so on. But for the new agent, it almost seems like by streamlining this, they're encouraging FMOs and carriers to create an LOA agency force in the future. You
Well,
don't
yes, that is decidedly happening, right? Like, it's not even like
you
it's being
see it
encouraged.
happening.
It's happening. Yeah, that's and I think, for better or for worse, it is going to be very difficult for new agents to break into the industry and learn the genuine things that you have to learn, the obstacles that you have to overcome in terms of like understanding Medicare and kind of wading your way through the alphabet soup of it. Um, it's going to be very difficult for an agent to get into this space without going through some form of LOA situation. Um, or coming into it from some other established insurance space, right? So I think that the people who are coming into it um, from another, like PNC or life insurance or something like that, I think that opportunity is still there because you've got other forms of cash flow. But I think the days of somebody who is like leaving their job working for Williams Sonoma and coming to
Mhm.
start selling Medicare full time and going out and being like, I'm going to hit the ground running and I'm going to go write 200 apps this year. And, and it'll be a little lean, but then next year I'm going to write another 200 apps and then I'm going to be making real money. I think those days are gone. I don't think that's coming back.
Well,
Um, I mean, like, it's possible, but like, I don't think you're making it through that first year without having some other source of income anymore.
But you don't foresee, although you may see the future growth of new agents coming more through a pipeline of an employer-employee type model, LOA type model, do you see regulatory changes to where those of us that are already established agents are unable to continue our business in the way that we are? Or you don't
No,
think that will? It's not like you
no,
can't be an independent agent eventually. It's just we've set obstacles to make that harder, and so it's not going to be the way
yeah,
business is done going forward as
yeah.
much.
I have not talked to anybody at any carrier, at any FMO, um, anybody who wants independent agents to go away. Maybe at CMS, I don't know anybody at CMS. So maybe the people at CMS want independent agents to go away. But I don't think they're going to get that because the carriers definitely don't want it. And the IMOs and FMOs don't want it.
Okay.
Um, the reality is as good and as profitable for these groups as having LOA agents might be for them, and it is. Um, it is also a lot more work for them to have LOA agents than it is to have independent agents. Um, and there are no carriers out there who have captive sales forces that would be happy relying exclusively on their captive sales force. None
I
of them.
agree.
Um, so
I
it's
agree.
I don't like I don't think there's a lot to worry about. There is a lot to pay attention to. Um, but there's not a lot to worry about.
So the way that that's kind of where I stand too. Here's the way I would summarize it from my vantage point is it's not the end of the Medicare world, but the Medicare world is forever changing. And we're going to have to weather a storm until we figure out exactly what that's going to look like. That's
Yeah.
kind of my take. Like it's still going to be a good business, a good business, but whether you like it or not, some things for better, some for worse are going to change, and they're in the middle of changing right now.
Right.
We just don't know exactly where that's going to land.
And honestly, it's the we don't know where that's going to land that makes it bad. I genuinely feel like if we knew what the final result was going to be and things were finalized, by now people would have already adapted and
Yep,
adjusted
we'd
and things
already
would be
be
fine.
changing what we needed to change, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know, though,
it's that it's a week away from being August and we're still like, well, I don't know, that things are that people are scared.
so I want to transition very similar conversation, but a different aspect of it because is compliance and kind of lead rules and changes. So last year, I think it was last year when they initiated the call recording rule on
Mhm.
independent agents, right? So everybody kind of complains about the 48-hour SOA rule, scope of appointment that you have to
Mhm.
collect. I don't love that, but it's like whatever, kind of like a fly that you have to swat away every, it's a little annoying, but it never made that big of a difference to me because I'm not gimmicky. Like my clients want to be my clients and I'm not like cold calling people and I need to close them right that second or anything.
Right.
So don't love it, but it's fine. But the call recording thing completely is
Yeah.
still to this day hard for me. I'm such a local agent that it's my actual cell phone number on all my advertising. Like
Right.
literally my clients just text me and they just call me and say, "Hey Kenny, my sister's going to call you next week. She turned 65." Like, how do I record all of this, right? And like it was I didn't even mind recording the enrollments. I have nothing to hide. I'll
Right.
read the script and yes, your plan is changing. I have nothing. I'm not, no big deal. But the call recording thing to this day, it bothers me so bad that if I were to leave the industry, it would have nothing to do with comp. It have to do with the outrageous compliance that is hurting me and not even stopping the actual problem, which are these massive call centers. So,
Yeah.
what is your take on some of the compliance? Not just like what they changed this year, where like a lead has, if it's generated for Nick Frunkin agency, cannot be sold to Medicare millennials, right? And like
Right.
that's that stuff too, but also what's
Yeah.
changed the past year or two. Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so I feel like the I feel like the rules revolving around lead generation are probably ultimately good, although they make leads more expensive. And that is unfortunate, especially when you're no longer getting marketing money to offset the cost of your
I
leads.
like that. I like that because I don't buy massive
Right,
quantities of leads. So I'm okay with the higher cost
right,
because I'm not like buying nationwide leads that I'm just call.
right,
But anyway,
right. No, and right. So I think they're mostly good. I think they actually do mostly protect agents. I am with you. So the thing about the call recording that I don't think anybody is talking about enough, and it is to me um actually the biggest deal, is you have to store these calls for 10 years. I filled up an entire terabyte of data, um, of calls just last year. So I'm going to end up with, over the course of the next 10 years, 10 terabytes of calls that I've got to just hang on to. And now that's, I mean, like if I'm keeping them in the cloud, which is kind of where they want you to keep them because they want you to have access to them more or less instantaneously when they ask for them. So they sort of want it cloud storage and not just on a hard drive somewhere, although for HIPAA reasons, you kind of want it on a hard drive somewhere. Um, like that's expensive and like difficult. And like there's a genuine storage issue of like terabytes of data that you need to keep organized and keep track of. Um, like I mean, I don't know, like I've got Google Business Platform with HIPAA compliant storage stuff, and I have something called client files, and every recording that I take goes to a particular client's client file. And so I've got all of these recordings and they're all dated and like I can get access to them, but it is a gigantic pain in the ass and it's not something I want to be doing. um and the storage and maintenance of the call recording logs is insane to me. um and there's like just a data breach waiting to happen. Like I don't know, like that's
it is an absolute nightmare waiting to happen. And it's also here's where it's hard. If you're an in-person agent, that's where it's hard because it's
Mhm.
like 90% of my conversations with this person are face to face or maybe like a quick text or something. And then when I get a random service call while I'm driving down the road, like I'm supposed to be recording this, like that's where to me it becomes unrealistic. And I don't think it's what they intended. I really don't. If somebody would come in and clean it and you know, like with a rational head and say, no, we were never intending for Kenny and Betty who Betty just called because she lost her card and wanted to get another one that you need to record that or whatever. Or she called and said, I saw a commercial about, do I qualify for that? And I say, no, ma'am, you don't have Medicaid. You're not qualifying for that, that you need to record that and that and that and that and that. It was surely that wasn't their intention, right?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it clearly wasn't. And yet, what are you going to do?
But
Right? The rules are the rules. You don't get to interpret them. You don't get to interpret them. Sorry. Got a piece of dust. But it is a problem. It is unfortunate. Um, and as a face-to-face agent also, I almost resent a little bit that carriers sort of treat people like your default is that you're a telesales agent now.
that's
Like
right. That's the way
like
I
that seems to be the default assumption, is that everybody's a telesales agent. And I'm not. And realistically, I actually think, again, going back to how this could potentially all be good. I I think for the most part, if you are a face-to-face agent, I really do feel like the majority of these rules will
protect you.
protect you. Yes. And create a space for you where people will be appreciative of the fact that you are able to just sit down with them and look them in the eye and just get something done and not go through all of the rigmarole of the
Mhm.
stuff that people who are doing telesales have to go through. Um,
Yep.
I do think the light at the end of this tunnel is a net positive for people who are face to face. Particularly through this AEP. If you can financially survive and make it until the middle of January, and go like all out on face-to-face sales this AEP, I think this AEP more than most AEPs is the one you want to focus on, because of the disruption in the space, and there is a place to take advantage of that.
So that's what I want to transition into to make sure we touch on is the disruption in the space from a plan perspective. Before
Mhm.
we do that, one final thought on what we talked about. In a perfect world, for me, if I had a genie and I could change this, the producing agent makes more money, more than 150. I think like maybe 150 to 200 more on initials and 75 to 100 more, somewhere in that range, more.
Yeah,
Okay. And they're allowed to get much stricter regulation, but they're still allowed to get marketing co-op and stuff. But maybe we regulate that where it's not just willy-nilly, like there's standardization, in some
yeah,
different things. Okay. We get rid of the 48-hour scope of appointment unless you're a call center because it makes no sense for
right.
anyone other than that. And we get rid of the call recording except for enrollments. Every enrollment by every agent should be recorded if it's done over the phone. I think that makes sense.
Agree.
And then we do something else, whatever that is, to make this less profitable for large call centers. To be quite frank, that's
Yeah.
my that's what I would wish for with my genie.
Yeah, I think I think that's all good. Although I will say, uh, all of the first things that you did will end up like making it more profitable for call centers, unfortunately. But I think all of that's good. I think if man, like if they gave just on the renewal side, if they gave everybody $150 raise on the renewal, and initials only went up by a little bit. Initials maybe only go up by like $100.
Mhm.
But if you made the renewal side stronger, I think
You're encouraging.
you're encouraging more good business.
Nope, I agree.
If you put more emphasis onto the renewal side, make everything the same, make all the payments the same, no difference between new and renewal, and you know, I think you're encouraging more good business. I think one of the things that got lost that was looking to be a really favorable thing was, um, it was looking like agents would actually make money for selling Part D plans. And
I was so excited about that.
yeah, and that would have been really good. And that would have been good for the industry, and it would have been good for consumers. And like now agents are back to not being incentivized to sell Part D plans because
Yep.
at the end of the day, why are like Part D plans require so much more work than a Medicare
It's
Advantage
the
plan
hard part of an MAPD without the benefit of
without
being.
any of the benefit. Yeah. Like
So
I
let's
know
use
so many
that.
agents who just say go to Medicare.gov.
A
So
hundred
many
percent, which
agents.
is a terrible service, but I get why they do it.
Yeah.
So let's use that to hear you. I want to hear your opinion on this. That's perfect. Really, what there's a lot of things that are going to alter the landscape this AEP and next year probably too, but none bigger than the Part D changes, in my
Yep.
opinion. So the Part D changes, what people don't realize is they don't only affect standalone Part D. Part Ds are built into MAPDs.
Yep.
You just won't see it as much because the MAPDs are more profitable and they can compensate for those changes in other areas, like get rid of some dental and increase a copay here. And they can do some things. Part D, you're going to see it. So with the Part D changes, and also this, no pay increase as of right now. That's all on pause.
Yeah.
I've heard multiple carriers are going to have all non-commissionable PDPs this upcoming year. I specifically
Yeah.
heard that WellCare will go non-commissionable on their PDPs. I don't know that for a fact, okay? So
Yeah.
don't take that as gold, but I've heard multiple people that have relationships there, that's their projection.
I've heard
Well,
that
if
too.
that happens, that that is even worse, right? Because now you're not only discouraging people helping with that, you're actually discouraging MedSup sales
Hmm.
greatly. You're
Yeah.
so some people already try to sell MAPD because they get paid more on turning
Right.
65. But now you're just dumping fuel onto that fire. So let's just kind of talk that through. Your thoughts on some of that.
Yeah, I think it's a real shame. I think it is a real shame. I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of disruption. We're going to see plans changing in a real significant way. I think we're going to see.
All plans changing
I
or
think we're going to see a lot of plans changing. Aetna put out their first and second quarter 2024 losses and saying that they were going to be revising their plans for 2025 with those losses in mind. I think that's very real. I think I've been hearing that a lot of PPO plans that had been starting to become fairly benefit rich are going to get contracted out of the system.
can
Uh,
maybe even pulled, maybe where PPOs are hard to come by now.
They've just become non-existent.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the things
So
that
it
I'm
looks
hearing.
like it's going to look like ACA, HMO only,
Yeah.
possibly, right? Like hypothetically.
And that's not great. Like from a consumer perspective, that's bad. That's flat out bad. It's not good. Um, there are lots of good things that the new rules do for consumers, but um, they've not necessarily been implemented in a way to protect consumers from the very realistic reaction to the new laws from the insurance carriers, because the insurance carriers need to make money. And if you're going to say you now have to take triple the risk, they're not going to just go, oh, okay,
No
you
biggie.
know,
They're going to cut.
and
So let me pause you real quickly because some people, I'm just going to summarize real briefly
yeah,
what's
yeah,
changing for Part D. So right now, starting in 2025, the biggest change that's easy to see is that the maximum out of pocket for a consumer on a Part D plan in a year is going to be capped at $2,000. Whereas right now it can be upwards well over $4,000.
yeah,
By the time it's all said and done, it's much higher than that. What a beneficiary could end up paying out of pocket depending on their drug. So that's capped at 2,000. Okay, and then there's a payment plan associated with that now. So the carriers actually have to float if somebody elects to take this payment plan where they pay equal monthly payments for their drug costs. They don't even pay for that at the pharmacy. So the PDP plan is going to float that. The carrier is going to
yeah,
float that, and there is no more donut hole. So you just whenever you meet your deductible and then you get into the initial coverage, which is just kind of like the standard copay, you're going to stay in that standard copay until you've hit your max out of pocket. Now, all of that sounds good for the consumer, but here's the problem. Insurance carriers are paying much more out of their pocket, carrying risk. Some beneficiaries are paying way more out of their pocket to float this because we're going to see premiums go up
yes,
dramatically.
without question.
And so the only people that win here are two people. Hear me out. That is a small percentage of people that don't qualify for LIS, but that are not high income enough to like handle $3, 4, $5,000 out of pocket, right? So it's like
Right.
this kind of lower middle class group of people that are unhealthy that benefit. Other than them, it hurts everyone else because costs go up dramatically. But the number one winner here are the drug companies. They have no skin in this game. I mean,
None. Yeah.
they get none of this hurts them. The government is trying to fix this problem. The root of the problem is our drug costs are astronomical in general. And we're trying to find a way to make that look better for consumers, but passing it on to the insurance company isn't going to work long term.
No.
So I'm not meaning to get political. It's just a reality
No.
that the drug manufacturers are making out like bandits in this deal. And it actually, I think, it's going to help some consumers, and I'm glad for that. But I think it's going to hurt more consumers than it will help overall in the industry, at least
Yeah.
unless I don't know.
It's the law of unintended consequences, right? It's the problem is, and I don't know what the solution is, because you can't expect the people that run the various government offices to be experts in how everything works. Although you would expect the people who run CMS to be experts in like how health insurance works. You'd think. Um, but but they're not. And the lack of understanding of the industry and how the industry functions um, is having these huge knock-on effects. And the sad reality is a lot of the decisions that are getting made because of squeaky wheel people complaining about things that they don't understand.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and so they don't go to fix the root of the problem. They just go to slap a band-aid on the symptom. And the root of the problem just continues to get worse. Now, I will say, all of that being said, from a consumer standpoint, bad. Anytime there is massive disruption to the fundamental functioning of the insurance markets, there's an opportunity there for
Huge.
people who are doing what we do.
Yeah.
And it always comes about. It is not always immediately obvious where the opportunity is, although I think in this case it is actually fairly obvious, but it's not always. But there is always the opportunity there. There is always the potential for you as the business owner, you as the agent, to seize that opportunity and have really good things come from this for you and your clients and your family and everybody else around you.
Agreed.
Um, so it is important to be looking for that opportunity. And I think it exists. I think it is absolutely there. I think it's actually reasonably obvious,
Couldn't
but
agree more. There's a
but
big opportunity here. In fact, so since we're coming up on our hard stop, I'm going to give you a rapid fire, a couple of questions.
yeah,
So you were
sure.
just talking about, hey, Kenny, it's not all gloom and doom. Like
Yeah.
there's some big opportunity here. Agreed. So with that being said, first rapid fire question to wrap this up. If you were a newish agent right now, not brand new, a newish agent
Mhm.
trying to go make the most of this AEP, what might be one or two general strategies? Like, would you focus on PDPs? Would you focus on market reductions, like where plans are pulling out? Would you focus, like, what area of the Medicare market might be an easy way for a newer agent to go gain some market share?
Yeah, I think if you have an in with any community who is Medicare aged, you should be trying to leverage that right now. Like if you work a lot with a religious institution that's fairly large that is mostly populated by people 65 and over, see if they want to let you give some seminars. If you have the ability to go talk to senior housing developments, like this is the time to get in front of as many people as you possibly can. I like if you've got some money saved up and you can just buy leads, drop a whole bunch of leads. Like I strongly feel like the name of the game for this AEP is going to be how many people can you possibly talk to about their Medicare before you run out of time? Because I feel strongly that everybody who is currently enrolled in Medicare is going to need to make some sort of alteration to their Medicare this year. And that's usually not true.
Yep.
Most people really don't need to make changes to their plans. And I think this year, most people are actually going to need to make changes to their plans. Don't know for sure yet. Like a shocking number of first looks have not even come out yet. But I think that is likely going to be true. Whatever you can do to get in front of people all day long, every day, that is the direction I would go.
I love
whatever
that.
your path of least resistance is.
What I love most about that is this may be the only AEP where if you couldn't afford a single lead, you'd be fine. If you
Yeah.
were just willing to go get, like you said, go to your local YMCA or fitness center to where and ask if you can give a lunch and learn. Go to with your mom or grandmother to the senior center and play bingo. Literally just being there with an Ask Me About Medicare shirt this year will be enough to garner you 50 or 100 apps if
Yeah.
you're just out there with
Yeah.
people
And
generating
that
conversation.
is not usually true, but boy, is that true. Going to be true this year.
Yep.
See the people has never been a more important thing than this year.
So next question, do you use a CRM? I get that question more than anything. And if
Yeah.
so, how important is it? You know, it doesn't have to be a long answer, but how
I
important is it and what do you like?
I do. I recently switched to Go High Level after having been like having my arm twisted about using Go High Level for like 4 years, and I'm really slow to make changes. I used a CRM before that also. I think it's just a good way to keep yourself organized. I'm not using the CRM primarily for the automation functions that people seem to really like. Although, hey, great. I am using some of those, and those are great. But being able to just have all of your notes and information and everything that you need to know about your client like available at the click of a button, having all their contact information, having all their plan history, having everything just right there, and then being able to pull up your clients in list form and say all of these people who have this similar thing in common, I want to see all of them.
Yep.
Everybody who's on the Aetna or the United Healthcare DSNP HMO, I want to see, but not the ones that are on the DSNP PPO,
Right.
right? Like I just like being able to do that is pretty fantastic. I highly recommend using one if it doesn't take up so much of your time that you are doing nothing else but entering information into your CRM.
I love it. I've heard a lot of good things about Go High Level. I personally use Medicare Pro.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason I like them is because I was any of the other ones that sound good. I hated that they all like I had to buy like dialers and stuff. Like I don't want to put my leads like I don't want to
Yeah,
lead that may not even doesn't have a phone number to enter into my CRM. Like I enter people in once they're a true prospect, right? Like I
right.
have an appointment set or something. So Medicare Pro CRMs just it does a lot of those things, just the simpler things. You don't have to like have a dialer or lead automation or any of that. So both sound like good options.
Yeah.
Final question. Best route if you started over today and you were on this podcast saying, all right, Kenny, I'm brand new, and you had to give yourself advice, senior market insurance, would you start right into final expense again? Would you do Medicare, annuity, say telesales in person? Like what would you change? Just kind of a short answer there.
I would definitely still stay with in person. I would probably stick with buying life insurance leads, as many of them as I could afford. Um, I would probably have focused on cross-selling and building my Medicare book of business sooner, and not have waited quite so long to get serious about that. Um, and I would have been much better faster about maintaining my relationships with my existing book of business, because the best business that you get is the business that comes from your existing book.
Agreed.
Um, and every person that you've written a policy for um, is genuinely a source of like 3, 4, 5 other policies. And it's not all just from like referrals, but like people have multiple needs, and you can, while staying within the space of being senior insurance, because I do feel like it's important to specialize, you can stay in that lane and help people with multiple avenues. I feel like things like short-term home health care are massively undermarketed. Cancer plans are massively undermarketed. Um, Hospital indemnity plans are not massively undermarketed, but are kind of marketed wrong and bad. Um, these are all things that people genuinely need. But particularly home health care and cancer protection. Long-term care insurance is essentially a dead industry. I was just talking to an agency owner the other day who is like on their masthead, they're like, we do life, disability, and long-term care. And I was like, so talk to me about long-term care. And he's like, no, long-term care is dead. Like we
Just a
like
gimmick, or just kind of put that out there because it gets people's attention.
yeah, he's like the only long-term care that really exists any longer that is of any value is asset-based long-term care.
Yep.
And unless they've got $1 million in assets or they're making over $250,000 a year in retirement, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
And that's just not that many people. So like being able to help people stay out of long-term care as long as humanly possible through some of the short-term care plans, through some of the cancer plans, is important. And it's a need. So yeah,
So you would
I would
definitely focus face to face. Go ahead and start with the better upfront commission and the less competitive lead environment with life insurance,
yeah.
less compliance, but immediately start developing the ability to cross sell Medicare and nurture that book of
And
business.
nurture that book of business and the referrals and snowballing effect that brings about, that treating that as the ultimate goal rather than as the secondary goal, which is how I spent a lot of my career. I spent a lot of my career where the life insurance was the primary focus and Medicare was just kind of like icing on the cake. But if you think of life insurance as the door opener to getting you to the health insurance market, I think that there's a lot to be said there. And it helps keep you cash flow positive because life insurance does pay quite a bit of money up front.
Reminds me of the side girl wife memes out there, like
Right. Yeah.
which one is which. But hey, Nick, I'm gonna cut it. Just got told us I wouldn't let this
Yeah.
go on forever. This has been a fun talk with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope that we bring some value to even if it's a handful of agents out there that could stick through us. Because we kind of love this industry, so we get to talking about it. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for coming on. Let's stay in touch. Any
Absolutely.
last words?
No, that's it. Hopefully everybody's prepared and ready and they have a great AEP. And, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, but it doesn't have to be bad. I think there's a lot of positive things to be looking up towards. So
I agree. All right. We'll see you guys later.